Good morning, ladies. How are you guys? I hope you can hear me. My name is Tata Olo. I'm going to be co-hosting this session with Azo. And I'm just going to take you through some housekeeping rules. If you guys have any questions, feel free to just pop me a message in the chat and we will ask the questions to Azo. If you have any, if you need to raise your hands, if you look down your screen, on the reactions, you will see there are different kinds of reactions. There's the clapping reactions over here, and then you have thumbs up if you like what Ozo is saying. And if you heard what Ozo is saying, you can also like let her know that you love what she's saying. Our session is going to be divided into 3 parts, as you can see from the program, and we will have some breaks in between. So feel free to relax with us and ask any questions you want. I mean, we really thank you for joining us this morning to learn about your bodies and what your bodies are saying to you this morning. We will start the session now at 11 o'clock and we should be finishing up at about 1:30. But feel free to move as you want to. We are just here, we're going to be here with you in this few hours. So I'm going to introduce you now to the lovely Ozo. So Dr. Ozo Ibeziako is a medical practitioner, specialist family physician, and lecturer at the University of Pretoria. Yes, so we have a question from Rosie. Will this be recorded so that I can share with a friend who can't attend this morning? Definitely, Rosie, this session will be recorded. And Ozo is going to share the recording with us after the session. Thanks for that. And actually reminding me for that. Okay, so just some bio for Ozo's bio. So she's a specialist family physician, and she also lectures at the University of Pretoria. Her special area is in the interest of marriage, adolescent, and women's reproductive health care. So that's why we are here today, right? And so she's also experienced in teaching the accredited Billings ovulation method. And another developing area is in medical management of fertility problems in women. So we are in safe hands. So feel free to ask any question. Like, there's no awkward question for Ozo. Like, I've went through this billing ovulation method with her, and it's been a very fantastic journey for me to learn about my body. And today she's all yours. Ozo, I'm going to we will start off with part 1 of Ozo's session, and we will be discussing why fertility awareness. Ozo, over to you.
Thank you very much, Tato. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for bringing out time to spend this round about 2.5 hours with us on this interesting session, fertility awareness. Well, I'm passionate about it. And I hope at the end of the session, you're all going to agree with me that it has been worthwhile, to spend this time getting to learn about a little bit more about what should be natural for us as women. And maybe when you saw the invitation, I don't know how it sounded to you. You must have been wondering, what is this fertility awareness all about? It's a concept that it might sound new. At the same time, it's not so new. But maybe on the other hand, it might be a concept some have heard, but vaguely understood. So I hope through the session we're going to go through this morning, it will clarify doubts. It will maybe enrich you, and maybe will awaken other interests along this line of fertility, taking charge of our fertility as women. But before we start, like
get free music
sorry,
on mdundo.com.
I've made the wrong click. I'm still trying to Okay, so Stato has already announced part 1. So the session is going to be in 3 parts. And in between the parts, at the end of the first part, we are going to have a Q&A question. But then before we start the first part, I thought we are to go through some questions. We are going to have a quiz, which I am going to also share with you all. This quiz should take us about roughly 2 to 3 minutes to respond to before I start my question. Before I start the questions. And you should be able to click it on your phones, and then it will come back to me. At the end of it all, I will be able to see the responses of each and every one of the participants. Just indicate if you have a problem. Can you all see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. In case we have some people who have just come in, we are having a quiz session. So please respond to each and every one of the questions. I'm going to project it for the next 2 minutes, at the end of which all will see the result of our responses. Okay, good. Let's see the results. Okay, I'm not going to tell you the answers to. Can we see the results of the poll? Tato, can we see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, we can see it.
All right, so let me go through through each of the questions. Okay, the first one says, fertility awareness is, the correct answer is the second one, ability to recognize ovulation. The second statement, menstruation is, the correct answer is bleeding that occurs after ovulation. And question number 3, the key event in a woman's cycle is ovulation, is the correct answer. And question number 4, a normal menstrual cycle lasts 24 to 36 days. Then the last one, the lifespan of the sperm and egg respectively in the woman's body when released is 3 to 5 days for the sperm and 12 to 24 hours for the egg. So now we're going to go through all this so that we can maybe clarify our doubts or maybe understand why it is what it is. So now the question is, why fertility awareness? Why is it important or relevant for each woman? So if we look at the concept of fertility awareness, is the capacity of the woman to identify whether she is ovulating or not. So it's a capacity a woman should have. It's an ability each and every one of us should have. Because when we talk of ovulation, ovulation means the release of an egg, which happens every month in our menstrual cycle. And this is because when we are ovulating, actually that is when we can say a woman is healthy. Well, we might wonder, what is it so? What does it mean that ovulation actually indicates a good health in the woman? Because it reflects adequate coordination between the activities going on in the brain and the ovaries. Ovaries are the sac where the eggs are stored, and then which usually ends up with coordination from the brain to the ovary, which usually ends up with the monthly menstruation we all experience when there is no pregnancy. So like we've said, ovulation indicates that the woman is healthy, good health. And then it's important to be able to accurately monitor our ovulation. And this is the main aspect of fertility awareness, because if we're able to identify a fertile window, a woman will know when she can achieve pregnancy, when she can delay. And the most important of it all is actually tracking our gynecological health. Tracking our health means we are able to pick up abnormalities early in time before it's too late. So in essence, fertility awareness is a way a woman can assess her health. The woman is in charge of whatever is going on throughout her reproductive life. So the other question will be, it's true at every month, each month there's a noticeable event in a woman's reproductive cycle or reproductive life, and which we all term menstruation. Okay, referring to one of our questions, in the late term, we normally say menstruation means we're shedding the womb, the lining of the womb. But actually the question is it merely shedding the lining of the womb? Is that what is happening on a monthly basis? Or is there something else that is going on? Maybe it's a question we've asked ourselves, or maybe we have never thought of it. But it's something that is interesting for us to know, because at the end of this of each month at the end of during each menstrual cycle, it's not just merely the bleeding that is occurring. Because it could be that women, we get lost in the monthly bleeding because of the unpleasantness or discomfort or the pain some of us go through. But then it's very easy to overlook the key event, which is ovulation. And this is a picture of Prof. Pilar Vigil. She's a gynecologist, also specialized in endocrinology, involved very much in female reproductive health. She's the one that coined this term, ovulation, a sign of health. The reproductive life of a woman spans the ages of 12 to 50, which means from puberty till menopause. And so it's a cyclical ovulatory cycle. So which means, in essence, on every month when we menstruate, ideally, the woman should be releasing an egg. If an egg is not released, then there is a problem. This is the paper she published. It's an interesting paper, which you don't need to be a medical person to be able to read it. It's true, sometimes they can be technical, but I think it's an interesting paper that we can assess and go through. So, like I was saying, bleeding is not equivalent to menstruation. It's important that we identify the fact that we're actually ovulating. And this we can do by charting the mucus discharge. Ovulation is usually identified by what you call the peak mucus symptom. And I'm sure it's an experience we all have, that definitely there are different types of discharges along the month. But then the critical sign of ovulation is what we call the peak mucus symptom. Some other indicators of fertility besides the mucus symptom that I've mentioned, we call them the biological signs. The mucus symptom is one of them. Also, the other one is the fact that there will be rise in temperature. Another indicator of fertility is the fact that the woman gets pregnant. There can be other, a sonar can pick up when the follicle, which is the sac containing the egg, is actually released, and also hormones. I'm sure maybe some of you are aware of some kits that one can use to test your level of hormones in the urine. And that is the basis of some of the fertility monitoring apps that are available in the market. So in the by charting, monitoring our menstrual cycle, the woman is able to identify what we call the fertile window. Like we know, a woman is not fertile every single day of her cycle. And this fertile window in the menstrual cycle, it's that period in the cycle of a woman when conception is most likely to occur. So which means there are other moments throughout the menstrual cycle when the woman is not fertile. So part of monitoring our reproductive health, our menstrual cycle, part of charting it, is to be able to identify the fertile period, the infertile period, the duration of my period, is it normal? And if it's not normal, to be able to know what is going on. Because whatever affects my menstrual cycle actually affects me as a whole. And because of the fact that the woman is not fertile throughout the month, we also need to be aware of the fertile window, because through paying attention to those biological signs I've mentioned, especially the mucus discharge, because also the sperm also have a lifespan, and the lifespan of the sperm depends on the presence of fertile mucus. The lifespan of the sperm is from 3 to 5 days, and the lifespan of the egg when released is 12 to 24 hours. So sometimes some women are told they are not infertile, they cannot conceive, and that is not true. The only thing is sometimes, many times it could be the woman has a short fertile window, and once that fertile period is missed, definitely conception cannot take place. Because even if the sperm is present because of intercourse, but then the mucus is not conducive or is aggressive for the sperm, or of course there is no egg for the sperm to fertilize. And then what happens if there is no ovulation? What does it mean that an egg is not released in the menstrual cycle? It's true, there are some what you call the normal conditions or physiological states of a woman where an egg is not released on a monthly basis. When does it happen? We call it the anovulatory states. That is at puberty. At puberty, when the reproductive system of the child is still getting matured, is still maturing, is still developing. At pregnancy, because once a woman conceives, the body automatically turns off the circuits for menstruation, but then turns on the circuits for preserving that pregnancy, that new life. Also, breastfeeding, during breastfeeding, the same thing, the circuit for menstruation is turned off because the mother is breastfeeding. Menopause, around before menopause, again, the circuit starts shutting down. So these are the physiological conditions when you say if there's no ovulation, there is nothing to worry about. But then, besides this, when there is no ovulation, we can see that actually the whole body system is affected. From the brain, you have the hypothalamus, the pituitary, which are the different parts of the brain that are critical for ovulation. It can be thyroid, a gland in front of the neck. It can be the pancreas, a gland inside the stomach. The adrenals, which is around the kidney, can be due to the fact that there is a lot of fat, adipose tissue, what we normally call the pot belly. Or the problem can be in the ovaries themselves. So you see that when there is no ovulation, actually the whole person is involved, and we need to identify the cause. So that's why merely giving a woman contraceptives to bleed, either to regularize her menstrual cycle, or giving her Clomid so that she can ovulate, doesn't solve the problem, but actually mask the problem that she has. Like I've mentioned earlier, of course, the woman's reproductive life is between the ages of 12 and 50 years, approximately, more or less. And if everything is normal, each menstrual cycle entails ovulation. And it's interesting to know that actually reproductive life begins very early in life, 2 months from when the egg is fertilized. That is 2 months from conception. By 3 months, the baby, the fetus, only has 7 million eggs. At birth, due to the different developmental changes and maturation, this has reduced to 1 to 2 million eggs. At puberty, about 400,000 eggs. And by the time we're starting the reproductive life, the woman has only about 500 eggs to go through the cycle of ovulation. So, which means as one advances in age, of course, fertility declines. So we can see that it's only about 0.01% of the birth eggs that are actually available to be released throughout a woman's menstrual cycle or reproductive life. Now we come to the big question. First of all, like we also, it appeared in one of the questions, what is menstruation? And menstruation is bleeding associated with shedding of the endometrium about 2 weeks after ovulation. So bleeding, menstruation is not merely the shedding of the endometrial lining, endometrium meaning the lining of the womb, but it needs to be shedding of the lining of the womb that comes after ovulation. So if a woman bleeds without us identifying ovulation, that means that bleeding is actually not menstruation. That bleeding can be other types of bleeding, and we'll talk about it later, which can be what you call intermenstrual bleeding. It could be what you call withdrawal bleeding or breakthrough bleeding. All these are as a consequence of very high levels of estrogen. Or it can also be implantation bleeding, when the egg is burying itself in the lining of the womb. And the menstrual cycle is actually the first day of bleeding till the last day before the next bleeding. That is what we regard as a menstrual cycle. So what is normal? So a normal length of the menstrual cycle or menstruation is 24 to 36 days. And besides that, there has to be an identified normal luteal phase. The luteal phase is the phase of the menstrual cycle that starts from after ovulation till the day before we start menstruating. That is what you call the luteal phase. And it's 11 to 16 days. So this means that anything that doesn't fall within these means it's abnormal. But then how does a woman know that? You can only know that if already you've been monitoring your reproductive health, you've been charting your menstrual cycle. About 85 to 95 women will have what we term normal. That means almost 15% variation of 5 to 15% of women might not have a normal cycle. It might be irregular and so on. But irregular doesn't mean abnormal. Always one needs to find out what the problem is in the concrete person. Then what is abnormal? Abnormal, the menstrual cycle becomes abnormal if the woman has 2 or more abnormal cycles in a year, or 2 consecutive abnormal cycles, again, that we identified by charting. And this abnormality means that is a short cycle, it's less than 24 days, or it's long, more than 36 days, or the luteal phase is shorter than normal. And like we said, the luteal phase is 11 to 16 days. So actually summarizing this first part of our session, key ideas that we need to take note of is that fertility awareness is the ability of the woman to recognize if she is ovulating. And I think each woman should be able to do this ought to do this because they are natural. It's all about my body. So the body's natural signs and symptoms tells the woman the beginning and end of fertility in each menstrual cycle. So through daily charting of these biological markers, a woman is able to recognize that she's actually ovulating. And like we've said, the normal menstrual cycle lasts 24 to 36 days with a normal luteal phase. So we come to question time in this first session.
So guys, if you have any questions, you can just raise your hand and then we will see your hand raise up and then you can, I think we cannot unmute, hey. And then you can ask your question.
We can have comments. We can have sharing.
Yeah. I have a question also.
Yes.
I want to know if all the women's eggs are all healthy.
Okay, that's a good question. Yeah, also, it's true what your comment. The question is, yes, sometimes it could be the problem could be that the egg is actually not healthy. It could be related to genetic problem. It could be related to nutrition. So actually, this is another part of the whole, why I talked about importance of looking at the woman holistically. It could be due to maybe what the woman is going through that has a lot of influence in the egg. So that's why the starting point always is to look at the chart. And then from there, we look at the woman holistically in terms of what is happening around her, other medical conditions or not. And sometimes, okay, we need also doing some blood tests. And then for us to arrive at the concrete diagnosis for this particular person. And in those cases, just improving nutrition is enough to take care of it. Again, regarding unhealthy eggs, of course, it's true if there is a problem with the egg. That's why many times when we have miscarriages that occur very early in pregnancy, precisely that is the situation of due to the egg being unhealthy, even when it's fertilized, that pregnancy cannot be sustained. But again, in cases of what you call infertility, or sometimes we can term it unknown infertility, the underlying factor could just be the problem of the eggs, which when boosted with adequate nutrition or addressing other sociological problems or circumstances, then that improves.
Thank you, Ozo. We have a question from Aretha. She's asking if you could please explain what the luteal phase is.
Okay, the luteal phase is the phase in the menstrual cycle, because the menstrual cycle has 4 phases, is the phase in the menstrual cycle which starts from after ovulation till the day just before you start menstruating again. It's normally called in the medical term post-ovulatory infertility. So during this phase, of course, the egg has been released, the egg is dead, the cervix is plugged, and there is no way this woman can be fertile. So yeah.
We have another question from Mashaku.
I wanted to ask, how many abnormal periods can you have like in a year? Because I think sometimes I feel like I have at least one abnormal like period in a year where I don't have, like, I think this year I didn't have like my period for like 56 days, and then after that it went back to being normal again. So like how many times a year can your menstrual cycle be abnormal for then it to be a problem?
Yeah, like we said, okay, if already you chart, because to be able to say it's abnormal, definitely you will be using one of the natural methods to chart your cycle. So it has to be 2 or more abnormal cycles in a year, or 2 consecutive abnormal cycles. Okay, but it's critical that you're chatting, because maybe sometimes we feel, oh, my period didn't come the day it's supposed to be, and so on and so forth. But you see, it's not just a matter of when I saw it. It's a matter of the events taking place on a daily basis. So that daily chatting and recording is critical to be able to make sense out of your menstrual cycle. Does that answer your question?
Yes, but thank you. It does answer my question.
Okay.
And then we have another one from Vanessa.
Hi, Ozo. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Vanessa.
I would like to ask about ovulation. What are the other key signs that you're ovulating besides tracking your mucus and temperature? Like if you don't have the devices, because I know that there are different methods, because there is a Facebook group called the NFP Catholic Style, like there's a Facebook page for that. But is there a way that you can truly see that you're ovulating without any sort of device or anything like that?
Yeah. So actually, okay, we are going to look at it towards that will be the third part of the session. Yes, for all the, now it's true in the market, you have a lot of devices now for fertility awareness monitoring. But fundamentally, when we talk of modern natural family planning, actually, they are all based on the Billings ovulation method, which is just tracking your mucus discharge. So that means chatting, observing and recording what you feel and what you see. And then it's normally good, we advise everyone to go through an accredited teacher to make sure you are able to interpret what you chat, because it's your body telling you what is happening to you. And then just with that, you're able to identify your fertile and infertile periods in your menstrual cycle. So yes, with Billings, you have a chart. I know Billings now have developed, you have your chart manual, which is manual. You can also have an electronic chart, so you don't need to write on paper, but it's precisely as simple as that, just using your chart without any other form of device or hormone testing, like testing your urine or taking your temperature. It is as simple and straightforward as that.
Okay, thank you very much, Ozo.
Thank you, everybody. We will be taking more questions after our tea break. It's 11:40, so we can all go for a tea break. If you want to stay, you can stay. It will be just for 10 minutes. So we should be back at 11:50, if everybody's okay with that.